Good evening, this is Brass Tacks. We're coming to you live from the CNN News 18 and Federal Bank Primetime studio. On the 25th anniversary of the Kargil War, Prime Minister Narendra Modi paid homage to the soldiers who sacrificed their lives for the country today. And on this day, Prime Minister Modi also chose to defend the controversial Agnipath scheme. Ever since its inception back in 2022, the government has been facing massive criticism from the opposition over the scheme. But today, the Prime Minister not only defended the scheme, but he launched a scathing attack on the Congress party. Prime Minister Modi said that the scheme is to rejuvenate the armed forces and to keep them continuously fit for war-like situations. He went on to accuse the Congress of spreading lies and slamming them for playing politics over national security. The opposition hit back, accusing the Prime Minister of using the armed forces to score political points. The question is, who is actually playing politics over national security and politicizing the armed forces?
राजनीति के लिए नहीं, राष्ट्र नीति के लिए काम करते हैं। हमारे लिए राष्ट्र की सुरक्षा सर्वोपरि है। ऐसा भ्रम फैला रहे हैं कि सरकार पेंशन के पैसे बचाने के लिए ये योजना लेकर आई। अग्निपथ का लक्ष्य सेनाओं को युवा बनाना है। अग्निपथ का लक्ष्य सेनाओं को युद्ध के लिए निरंतर योग्य बनाए रखना है।
So the Agnipath scheme in no way strengthens the capacity and the capabilities of the armed forces, because as modern warfare will become more technologically oriented, you can't have these short-term outsourced model of recruiting people.
The Agniveer martyrs do not get the same respect as those who are in the regular army who've joined through the earlier procedure. It's a shame that he continues to defend it despite seeing so much opposition amongst the youth as well.
भारतीय सेना का अपमान है। आप मुझे बताइए, क्या प्रधानमंत्री ये कहना चाहते हैं कि जिस सेना ने पाकिस्तान के 2 टुकड़े कर दिए, वो सेना युवा नहीं थी, बहादुर नहीं थी, मजबूत नहीं थी, पराक्रमी नहीं थी? क्या कहना चाहते हैं प्रधानमंत्री?
जो जवान फौज होती है उसको बरकरार रखना बहुत ज़रूरी होता है, और मेरे ख्याल से जो अग्निपथ और अग्निवीर योजना जो है ये बहुत उसके लिए कामयाब होगी। और मुझे ऐसे लगता है ये कमेटियां और ये तो पॉलिटिकल जो माइलेज लेना वो दूसरी बात होती है।
All right, it's Prime Minister Modi versus the opposition on this Agniveer scheme. Who is misleading the nation? RP Singh, National Spokesperson of the BJP, joining us. Dr. Shama Mohammed is National Spokesperson of the Congress Party here in our studios. Major General retired A.K. Sivach, Defence Expert, joining us. Major General Bishambar Dayal, retired Defence Expert, also joining us. RP Singh, this is the opposition's contention. I'm going to read one by one. What the opposition is saying is controversial as far as Agniveer is concerned. A, that the scheme is flawed and that it is unconstitutional. Not been tested by the law. Agniveer is that the youth can never accept the Agniveer scheme, and the opposition is saying this was one of the resonating issues in the recent campaign, and the reason why the BJP did not do particularly well in states like Haryana or other places which send Rajasthan, which send a lot of young people into the army, is because of Agniveer. And this is creating an artificial divide between those who are regular Jawans and those who are Agniveer. Please respond.
Well, Zaka, I would have appreciated you should have asked this to Major General Sahab before me. But anyhow, I'll answer because it has a political color to it and political connotation to it, so I'll answer that. But fact is that opposition is not raising question on Agniveer. They are raising question on the valor of the Indian Army, and they are raising the question on the national security as a subject. Because when they say it's not constitutional, I mean, I don't know what is the procedure of declaring a scheme or declaring some processes or declaring some other policies, and then what was the constitutional process for that? I mean, as I'm hearing it for the first time, that it's not constitutional. Secondly, the objective of the Agniveer is to decrease the age of the Jawans from 32 years of average age to 26 years of age, so that we can be more battle ready, and then we can fight the tough terrains, especially because Indian borders, especially the northern borders and northern eastern borders, are the mountain range, and we need youngsters who can fight there. And again, why they are doing this? When they do politics, they can do politics anywhere else, but try to relate it to elections, that you lost election because of Agniveer. I mean, it's so sad. When by that process, that people, then the youngsters who applied and who are part of the Agniveer now, should not have applied and should not have joined the army under Agniveer scheme. And last not but the least, after the 4 years, they are being accommodated. They will be part of the police system in the various states now. Haryana has already taken the initiative, or other central forces, whether it's CRPF, BSF, or other central forces, and they are going to get a privilege there. They are going to get a special advantage there also. And also, 25% of this set of youngsters will be part of the army also.
Okay, so let me ask Shama Mohammed this, that this is what the Prime Minister today said in Dras as he laid the wreath at the War Memorial and then spoke after that. He made a pointed attack against the opposition for politicizing Agniveer. He said that the Agniveer scheme is an example of reforms done by the army. The average age of the soldiers, you heard RP Singh also say, it was 32 before, it needs to be brought down to 26, and Agniveer is one way of doing that. The country has addressed that particular concern through Agnipath. The goal is to make the army younger and fitter and ready for war. The opposition is politicizing a sensitive national security issue for their own personal benefits. Please respond.
Okay, a couple of things. First and foremost, today the Prime Minister of India did not need to bring up this issue on a day we all have been celebrating Kargil Divas. You know that. There is no need to bring up this issue. Now he says the army, it is to make them fit and young. So again, he's insulting the martyrs of Kargil today, saying that they were not fit and young when they fought the Kargil War. We have also divided Pakistan into two. We have a very strong military, and I salute them today. What was the reason for the Prime Minister of India to politicize the event today? What was the reason for him to speak about it? I thought in his third term, he would bring about consensus. He would talk more about how we can bring India together, how we can go forward with employment and various issues which we are facing recently. That is what I thought would happen. Now, let me ask the RPN Singh one thing. General Narwane.
RP Singh, not RPN Singh.
Sorry,
yeah.
RP Singh. Sorry, that's my mistake. General Narwane is not from the Congress party. He clearly said that it came a bolt out of the blue. Initially, they said they would retain 75% and let go of 25%. But that changed to retaining 25% and letting go 75%. Initially, the salary to be paid was, let me finish, 20,000 rupees. This is all recorded in his book if you read it. 20,000 rupees. They said no way and then made it 30,000. So our thing is, and recently you've also seen one of them who've come out and tried to kill somebody else. So you can't have somebody for 4 years. This is the army. Everybody is ready to give their life for this country.
Okay.
We just recently lost General Thapa, a young man. I feel for them. So what we are saying is that let them get the same status as the rest of them. And one last thing, JDU, LJP, they are not our allies. They are the ones who said that the government of India, the BJP, the Prime Minister has to rethink the scheme. Very important.
Let me ask the generals here who are in our studios. General Sivach is here. General Dayal is here. General Sivach, let me start off by asking you first. The opposition's contention that this basically drives a wedge between those who are regular soldiers, whether it is short service commission or full commission, and those who are Agniveers. To the opposition's contention that Agniveers are use and throw labor because after 4 years, 75% of them are discarded, 25% are integrated. The 75% then basically have to fend for themselves, whether they get integrated into Central Armed Paramilitary Forces or whether they become security guards at private establishments. That's up to them. The point is this driving a wedge? What is the rationale for bringing such a scheme in the first place?
Absolutely. See, Jaka, what has happened is after the Kargil War, there was basically a review committee which was done, and that committee has basically given, the Subramaniam committee has given 3-4 points. One was that the average age of the soldier that time was 32, and since you have to fight in high altitude mountain, the recommendation was that it should be reduced to 26, 27. So by bringing this scheme, the aim is that in next about 10 to 15 years, that the average age of the soldier must be reduced to almost 26. The second issue was that the age profile of the COs, the commanders and the div commander must be also reduced, because you need a young officer, young commanding officer. That process has been already done. That has been already implemented. And third thing was that it was seen that in the defense budget, the capital is getting a less amount which is for modernization, more money is spent on revenue which is pay and pension. So that was also a thing as to how do you reduce that expenditure. Now with that aim, the government has brought this scheme, but I suppose that now the review is being done by the government. It has been already sort of a survey done within army to find out how you can make it a better. Aim should be some recommendation to make any apprehension with it. Now I can give you 3-4 recommendations in a very positive mind, and I know the government is thinking very positively and they are likely to make this amendment. One is, I suppose 25% is slightly less. It should be increased to 50 to 60% minimum.
So you're saying 50% should be integrated into the regular forge and 50% can be integrated into CAPF?
It will be a mixture of a youth and also an experienced soldier. The other issue is that in case if 50% or 60% retained, the rest of them should be absorbed in CAPF. A written notification should be there, and they must be given age relaxation and also the physical relaxation, so that anyone who is going out after 4 years must be completely absorbed in CAPF. Now another point, Jaka, third point is that this 4 years possibly slightly less, increases to 7 years, because you will not able to make full use of a soldier. In 4 years it takes time for regimentation, it requires a combat training in the unit itself. I suppose 7 years will be a very important thing.
So you've made two very interesting points. One, increase the duration from 4 years to 7 years. The other, increase the number who are absorbed into the army or any of the defense forces from 25% to at least 50%. But here's the math. Let me ask General Dayal. The reason, one second. The reason why, even though, you know, BJP spokespersons are not are loath to saying this, but let's look at the hard, cold numbers. General Sivach also mentioned about the hard facts are this. The Defence Ministry budget, the budget that was just presented 3 days ago, Nirmala Sitharaman presented Union budget for 24-25. The total allocation for defence, the defence budget is 6,21 crore 940. The share of pension, just pension and pay in that, sorry, just pension, forget about pay, just pension paying for retired armed forces personnel is 1,41,205 crores, which means about a quarter, about 22, almost 23% of the defence budget is simply funds that are allocated for pension. You cannot have such a scenario going on and on. This year, it is increased by 2.17% compared to last year. If you increase at 2% every year, then by 10 years' time, you would have increased it by 20%. That is not a mathematically sustainable model for any government. Forget about the Indian government, any government.
I think you asked me a very financial question, right? So let me answer financial only. When the country had a GDP of $590 billion only, the same threats were there, the same burdens were there, the same pension was there. And the threat, 1993 treaty had been signed between us and China, which China violated, right? So that means in LAC there was a relative peace, calm, okay? And Pakistan had been quite beaten back, and there was no Kargil till then. So if you could afford, and all modernization went there. If I go into the modernization of armed forces, you will not be able to count. We started the missile program in 1980s, that time, right? So today when you are looking at $5 trillion India, when you are looking at India, which has got major security threat, where 4,000 kilometer LAC is live, where more than 1,000 kilometer of LOC is live. No country has that threat, friend. So my question is now, and I'm not here as an economist, and I wouldn't say compromise because of this. When countries grow, finances grow. We used to have 3% of the GDP on the defense expenditure. Today, if you bring it to 3% GDP, you will modernize the army in no time. There are many ways. I've even said that let's consider creating a fund, modernization fund. We gave a paper to none other than the then Defence Minister, Mr. Parikar, when I was Chairman, National Council Defence and Aerospace. There are various ways. This was not the way. The scheme was not thought through. The scheme was half-baked. The scheme was not a pilot project, was not carried out. The 3C did not look at the issues which will affect you. See, armies, the soldier is the strongest weapon of our army. His indomitable spirit, his training, his regimentation, his ethos, it doesn't come overnight. You don't have a policeman in Delhi police who is 6 years. Please reduce the training of these 6 months to Delhi police, to the Haryana police, BSF, everybody. You reduced our basic training. That means the transformation period, which training and transform has been cut. So he's not fully transformed. Then is the period when we say that the soldier is getting embedded. That period was 4 to 5 years, and then he excelled. Your Indian soldier, I must tell the nation, was driving a tank, which a officer drives in Soviet Union, Russian army. Officer, 4 years trained officer drives. He was handling a AD system, a 10th, 12th class boy, which a trained, highly 4 years trained officer does in the Russian army.
Okay.
Your soldiers, our basic ethos was training, motivation. We didn't win Kargil because we had superior weapons. I will take one more minute, sorry. We got to look at the issue completely. This was not driven by the armed forces. This now people are trying to prove it, and I would not blame some planners. They came out with this scheme. Let's not involve the Prime Minister. Let's not involve the politics. Let's look at it. Where are we going from here on?
Okay.
The passion in the rural society.
That's a separate matter. That's a separate matter. Let me ask RP Singh to please respond to what General Dayal has said, that this was not thought through. He's not the only one. General Naravane has said this in his book. Of course, the book did not entirely come out in print, but he said that this was not consulted, that the armed forces, especially the Navy and the Air Force, the Army at least, there might have been some level of consultations, but the Navy and the Air Force had no clue that such a scheme was being put into place. So please respond to that. And also the point that both the generals have made, that A, you have to increase it from at least 4 years to 7 years, and more importantly, 25% being recruited into the army is too less. You need at least 50%, if not more.
Well, both the generals are very learned generals, and both have served the army, and salute to both of them. But fact is that all of this issue has been discussed since 1989. This move of reducing the age of the army started way back in 1989, and from there it was being discussed at various levels within the army, and then it was forwarded to Defence Ministry. It's not that it came from the government or it came from the Defence Ministry. It was the other way around, that it was from the journals and from the people who matter in the army. They suggested it. I'm not aware whether of the details, whether it was discussed with the Navy or not. I mean, as per me, it would have been discussed with Navy and Air Force and Army, all three segments of the forces. But again, General Saab, there is always a room for improvement. I mean, I'm for it that there is always a room for improvement. And yes, government can take suggestions, give suggestions. Obviously, this program is being watched by the government officials also. And then obviously, they will take your suggestion. And otherwise also, you can always write, and General Dayal can also send the suggestion to the Defence Minister directly and say whatever they want to say, how to improve this scheme. But there are schemes of this sort in various countries. Not only in India. I mean, there are schemes almost of the similar sort, or even with a shorter term of the services in various countries.
Okay.
But that point aside, give me a second. That point aside, I'm still on with the generals, both the generals, that if there is a room for improvement, we can improve it. But I request the Congress party spokesperson and their leaders also, don't politicalize it. Don't politicalize army. I mean, it's sad, I have to say this. This is an agenda of some people abroad, which you are following here.
Okay.
To politicalize everything, which is very sad.
Dr. Shama Mohammed, you know, one of the contentions that the opposition has been making, that is this an unconstitutional scheme. It was not passed in Parliament. It doesn't stand the test of law. Here are the various legal challenges that have been brought forth against Agnipath. On 28th February 2023, the Delhi High Court ruled, and I quote, "Scheme is in the national interest to ensure forces are better equipped." On the 10th of April 2023, the Supreme Court did not interfere in the High Court judgment which upheld the scheme as a well thought out one. On the 22nd of December 2023, this matter was challenged in the Kerala High Court. The Kerala High Court ruled as follows: no reason to interfere as long as there is no infringement on fundamental rights. To say that this doesn't stand legal scrutiny is wrong, is erroneous.
Okay, so let me put it. Now, when the Sabrimala issue went to the court, what was the judgment and what happened in Kerala? So you have to understand, court goes by what presentations are made to the court. They go by the book. You have to understand that. So the issue out here is, Zakka, that this is for the country. The soldiers are sacrificing their lives for our country. We can't have anybody or any soldier there for just 4 years and then tell him get lost. And that too, why don't you retain 75% of them? Why only retaining 25%? He's saying the issue, somebody mentioned about the budget. You yourself said that, the pensions to be paid. Why did we have this new parliament building? We didn't need it. Why was money spent on Central Vista? We could have scrapped the Central Vista project. That was a wasted project. What has happened about all these 100 smart cities we were talking about? Where is the bullet train? We want to put money in bullet train. I'd rather put it on the pension of my soldiers. I care. The Congress party cares for these soldiers. See, unlike other countries, we have issues with China on one side. The other side is Pakistan's deep state. Even now, our soldiers are dying there. What are we doing about it? How much of intelligence failure is happening in Jammu right now more than Kashmir? And who is accountable? Has there been any accountability for the intelligence failure that has been happening in the last couple of years?
Okay.
Nobody is held accountable. Now, my issue here is I want the soldiers to have good pension. Like, for example, if I was Tapa's mother, I would feel. I already feel for her because I'm a mother today and my son is dying for this country. I'm thinking of the General Tapa's mother, Colonel Tapa's mother. So every soldier is giving up their life. And if you have to have that passion to fight, to be there are many of them who as young kids want to be soldier and fight for this country. You can't have somebody for 4 years and tell them get lost.
RP Singh, please respond and then I'll come back to the generals in the studio after that.
They can turn out to be mercenaries.
Please.
They can turn out to be mercenaries.
Yeah, please respond, RP Singh.
Mercenaries for other.
Okay, we heard you. Let RP Singh respond and then I'll come back to the generals in the studio. Yeah.
I never expected this from Shama Mohammed, that saying that army people who retire from the army after doing 4 years of service will be mercenaries and they'll be misused in the society. And I'm very sad. Again, I'm saying they're intentionally trying to belittle the complete process with the objective. They have an interior objective which has been sponsored, funded by some people from abroad, and they're following that track. I'm sorry to say that, but this is very sad. But coming to the point.
One at a time, please. One at a time, ma'am, please. Ma'am, please.
You are a learned person.
Thank you.
And also, they never provided even the bulletproof jackets. It was only the NDA government which came and brought in the bulletproof jackets in the armed forces. But that's not the issue. Issue is that when government is saying that we will accommodate each one of them into the system somewhere in some fashion or other, whether in the forces enough fund to make his good living.
Okay.
But again, last point, for God's sake, this is the objective of the Congress party.
So let me ask the two generals here. One second, ma'am. One second, please. I'm too many times in the recent past. Unfortunately, at the death of an Agniveer soldier. I believe one had passed away recently in Uttar Pradesh, and Rahul Gandhi had gone to meet his family, and this has become a huge issue where he claimed, General Sivaj, that only 45 lakhs are being given for Agniveers, whereas for regular Jawans, 75 lakhs are being given. Similarly, ex gratia, this was the first one, was insurance. Similarly, ex gratia, the opposition's claim is only 44 lakhs are given for Agniveers. 50, you have one set of rules for one set of people and another set of rules for another set of people. All of them are fighting for the Indian Army. They're all fighting for the nation.
Yeah, Jaka, no doubt about it. I suppose this is again one of the recommendations which I wanted to give in the beginning only. And no doubt, see, my point is that one scheme has come, let's make it, give some positive action. Let the government has also done the review board. Now, the point which you are saying is, what does it mean? It means that in 4 years, when we sacrifice his life on the line of control or line of actual control on line of duty, then he will get a particular amount which is been as per the scheme. Whereas the soldier issue. My again request is to the government and through Mr. R.P. Singh that let's not differentiate between both once someone sacrifice life. I suppose the government is positive, they will take this into account.
You are saying both ex gratia and
not recognize who is a regular soldier and who is Agniveer. The another thing is, remember that any soldier who is sacrificing his life today on line of duty knows that this country will look after his family, and that is a great motivation, and he never thinks twice to lay his life. I suppose that can be taken. And my Jaka point is, the government is very positive in these recommendations. These recommendations have come from the army also. They are thinking positively. I am sure in time to come, certain things will come and they will come positive. So aim is not to become a negative, think positively, make this project more viable and positive. The another thing is, consider is a pilot project. After 4 to 5 years, after all, no scheme can be foolproof.
Correct.
Carry out the recommendation and modification and make it as good as feasible as possible.
So General Dayal, the argument given forth by government, and I suppose some of this argument has also come from the armed forces or the bureaucrats in charge of the defense ministry, is that India is not the first country to introduce such a scheme. It is there in the United States, it is there in Britain, it is there in France, it is there in Germany. So clearly there seems to be something that those countries are also doing on similar lines as Agniveer. So why all this, brouhaha just because it's been introduced here in India?
The bureaucrats must say why those countries are implementing those schemes. Have they explained? They don't have manpower. They are not voluntary. Nobody is doing voluntary service there in terms of conscription. It's being forced on them because of lack of will amongst people to go and serve the army. Because the army abroad in these countries is not the profession of the way it was before the Second World War. Second issue, let me come back again to the core issue is, look, we are quoting a Subramaniam committee report which was 22 years back. We are quoting a report of the group of ministers which Arun Singh and that 20. I've gone through all that. Please, nowhere was the soldier. War is not fought by this soldier, by this 4-year soldier. War is fought by the team, by JCOs, NCOs. Their age is always there and they're young, believe you me. What are we trying to say? People, those who went to Galwan, they were not young. What are we trying to say that we were not battle ready when we faced in Eastern Ladakh and today they are deployed from last 3 years? Are there any study reports there saying that because the soldier is 30 years, 32 years, he can't stay there? We have stayed there in the... What my crib is that you have brought a scheme, you did not think through, you did not start from the battalion commander's recommendation, it was not discussed by the army commanders in their conference, it was not recommended in completely by the army. You brought in a scheme, and to justify that scheme, people are coming with the arguments which are actually negative towards image of the army. Arguments like army was not young, army was not battle ready. Sir, we were battle ready in 1947 when we were immediately picked up and went to J&K. That's the Indian army. We were battle ready when we rushed to unacclimatized, rushed to Sachin, and these days people went there. They were battle ready. We have been battle ready. The problem is the budget which he was talking about, and people have not thought through, and I would not like to drag the Prime Minister. He has been briefed by people. So he would naturally, he would speak. He was briefed by people on Galwan, so he spoke.
I am completely out of time. Like I said, and I would agree with the generals here that if certain tweaks need to be made to the scheme, then certainly it is something worth thinking about. It is something worth considering. Thank you very much to R.P. Singh, Shama Mohammed and the two generals here in the studios for joining us. Let's see how this Agniveer story plays out through the course of this budget session and beyond.